Hello everyone, this is HuskyStarcraft here. I'm going to be casting a 1 versus 1 between our red Terran player up here in the top right side. His name is Mouse Lomo. If you're wondering why I'm not saying mouse, it's because it is pronounced mouse. That is why, at least I think it is. That is what people outside the United States have told me, and I trust them a greater deal than I trust my own judgment. So anyways, his opponent is going to be KiwiKaki. Spawning down here in the bottom left side is going to be a Protoss versus Terran. Now, this game was sent to me at huskyreplays@gmail.com. I don't know exactly when this replay was played, so hopefully, did I say replayed was played? I don't know when this replay was played, but it did have KiwiKaki in it. I have not cast KiwiKaki in a little while, and he is such a great player. I want to make sure that he's getting as much coverage as he deserves. And then Mouse Lomo, I honestly don't know too much about. I do remember back in the day, StarCraft 1, there was a player named Lomo, but this is not the same player, as that player was a Korean player. Now, there is quite a history with KiwiKaki in StarCraft 2. I do want to mention in 2010, he didn't get too many first places, but he was in a lot of tournaments in MLG. The one in DC, it looks like he got 4th place, losing to Select 2-1 there. Select is a very good Terran player from North America. And then in MLG Raleigh, which was the one I was at, he got 2nd place, losing to Huck in a 2-1 series there. Now, with how the ranking works, I believe Huck was in the winner's bracket and KiwiKaki was in the loser's bracket, so it was much easier for Huck to take that in the end. But yeah, getting 2nd place, 2-1 there at MLG Raleigh. At WCG Canada, he also got 2nd. And losing 2-1 to, I always can remember not how to say this guy's name. It is Leftnage. Sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. But in 2011, I know I'm still talking here about his record, but I do want to mention that he has played a lot of games and is a very powerful and unique player. In MLG Dallas, so this is the 3rd MLG he was at, he got 2nd, losing to Naniwa. That one was a 2-4, so getting a lot of seconds at MLG. And also at another Root Gaming tournament, he got 2nd to Minigun, which is funny because earlier he won that Root challenge against Minigun, crushing him 3-0, this time losing 2-3. And then also the IGN Pro League, if you guys haven't watched that yet, cover your ears. I'm going to give you 5 seconds because I don't want to spoil anything having to do with the IGN Pro League. So cover your ears, cover your ears, cover your ears. All right, he got 2nd in that in the finals, going against Idra and losing 2-3. So he was able to take 2 games off of Idra, not able to seal out the deal, though. So for now, back to this game, it does look like the Scouting SCV just going to be getting taken out here. He is Chrono Boosting out a 2nd Stalker here, which I'm curious to see exactly what KiwiKaki is going to do with this. Chrono Boosting it again, so he may be trying to put on a little early pressure here, hoping that his opponent is not going for Marauders, and indeed his opponent is not. However, thankfully for Lomo, he does have his bunker on the way, so what KiwiKaki is doing right now is just kind of a StarCraft 1-esque early rush with his very first attacking units here. We'll see if he's going to be able to cause any damage. Lomo should be able to lift up his supply depots in time. I really doubt that KiwiKaki will be able to just kind of sprint inside the main base. Does Lomo catch wind of this quite yet? He does not see the Stalkers there, but I think he knew something like this was coming because that's why he's throwing down the bunkers. Here comes the attack right now. Looks like these Marines may take quite a bit of damage. The SCV building the bunker will get taken out, and then the Stalkers are going to back out here, although they have taken a lot of damage, so may want to kill a couple Marines here to really make this attack worth it, as one of his Stalkers just kind of limping away there with a walker after taking that amount of damage. Look at this, 32 HP remains there. Of course, the shields will recharge, although once the bunker is now done, I really doubt that KiwiKaki is going to be able to push in here. Now, did he see this command center? Yes, he did, so he throws down his own Nexus right away. And what he's most likely going to do is use these Stalkers to delay that expansion, because he wants his expansion timing to be about the same, if not ahead of his opponents. And he may use these Stalkers in order to do that, just prevent the command center from floating over there. And Lomo's got to be really careful here, because Marines are not very good against Stalkers. They don't do a lot of upfront damage like the Marauders do, especially with that slow, as the Marauder will just sit there shooting them. But the Marines, they do not have the range or the slow that the Marauder does in order to deal that damage. So again, KiwiKaki probably just going to use these, delay the push here. It looks like Lomo is preparing for some sort of entrance bust. So not only is KiwiKaki delaying the expansion, he's also forcing a couple SCVs off the line. You can see there's not that many SCVs mining up here for Lomo. Production tab shows no workers on the way. Maybe going to try and get out enough units to break down his ramp. We do have a Hellion on the way. Are we going to see that blue flame, as we do have a tech lab now? There is a second factory as well for Lomo, so he's, well, a third factory. This is something I have seen before, is 3 factories on one base and using your other command centers for the additional mules to kind of pay for it. So we'll see if that's something that's going to pay off or not. KiwiKaki just now taking his expansion, so he will have that advantage as far as economy goes. This Hellion is going to try and slip out of here, will be spotted right away by the wounded Stalker, and that's really wise if KiwiKaki to leave the wounded one here, because if he loses this Stalker, he's not losing as much HP of his army, or rather, did I say that right? Where this one's already weakened, so he's not as valuable because he can't take as much damage, which means he probably won't deal as much damage because he's going to die much quicker. So this other factory is going to be wrapping up right now. We do have that blue flame on the way still. He hasn't canceled it or tried to do a tech switch to secure his expansion or anything like that. We'll see if he's going to do anything with these Hellions. I'm curious what he's going to attempt here. And you can see KiwiKaki sees a Hellion, realizes, okay, Hellion run-by is a definite possibility. I'm going to go ahead and wall in with a couple of pylons, especially since Hellions do not do that much damage versus armored things like buildings. And we do have a siege tank popping out right now. More Hellions on the way, so there's 2 Hellions total, as well as another reactor. So I'm really curious to see what he does to follow this up, as he's just now going to be securing his own expansion. At the same time, KiwiKaki just warping in more additional gateway units. He is still only on 3 gateways, being able to get away with this because of his good scouting, which you can see the observer going to check out exactly what's going on here. Has he spotted the 3 factories? Not yet. Most likely will be able to fly in here, though. There's not really all that much anti-air to spot this, so the observer will see exactly what's going on. 3 factories from our Terran opponent. Now, we can see KiwiKaki going to be going for Immortals. I think he's hoping that he can use those on the siege tanks and then use everything else to kill off the Hellions. We'll see if that gameplay style is going to pay off here. This is a lot of Hellions, which a lot of people may be sitting at home scratching their heads like, why would you go this many Hellions? Essentially, you'll just roast away the Zealots immediately. Hellions are also good against the sentries, so they can kill off those, and then all you have to deal with is the Stalkers and the Immortals. But siege tanks are good against Stalkers, but we'll see if this is enough Hellions to kill off that Stalker. I believe that was the wounded one. Not often we see that many Hellions take on a Stalker in a Protoss vs Terran matchup, because people just don't make the Hellions that much. Now these SCVs need to get back to work there, and needs to make sure not to supply block himself, since he's going these units that take a lot of supply. I mean, if you look at the Hellions take 2 supply, siege tanks take 3, and should he upgrade to Thors, will take a lot more on that. Thors do take that 6 supply, so he is going to be moving out right now, and he's not supply blocked here, so he will be able to reinforce this right away. Just needs to make sure to stay on top of his macro and do as much damage as he possibly can. And some force fields are here, got to drop all the Hellions. Look at that. How many force fields is that? That is a 9, I believe. Able to trap that. No, it's just 8. Just kidding. But able to kill almost every single Hellion. Those things did not do anything to this army, or at least not as much as I expected. But at the same time, the Marines are going to be able to snipe the Immortals here. You can see how this Terran army is actually pretty effective here. We do have 3 Immortals on the field now, as well as a Stargate here, so Lomo needs to make sure not to lose all his units. There are no more force fields, though, as those light units get taken out almost immediately by the Hellions. And this Hellion does have 1 kill now. Now the Immortals have all been sniped, I believe. I do want to mention that we have a fleet bacon on the way. And yes, I do say bacon because bacon is delicious. This siege tank going to get taken out as well. I don't know that siege mode was done at all. He was just relying on the straight up damage of the siege tank. So I'm curious to see the units lost tab here. You can see that our Protoss player ended up losing more in that battle, even though it may have looked like the Terran player was way behind. A couple of Hellions got to try and slip down here to do some probe harassment. Thankfully for KiwiKaki, he is in position to deal with this. And the Hellion pathing, he was trying to run it down here. I think the wall end is just too good for KiwiKaki, just closing down all the routes for those Hellions to go. He is going to be expanding down here. You can see he's already taking care of the destructible debris. And what are you up to, KiwiKaki? Is he going for carriers? Yes, he is. And this is not a random unit composition that he's going for. He realizes that his opponent only going for meching units, not that many Marines on the field. I mean, yes, there is some, but 3 factories indicates, well, if you go for a carrier, Hellions cannot attack air, siege tanks cannot attack air, Thors can attack air, but it is not the kind of damage that you would want in an investment like that. You really can't hold off those carriers. And KiwiKaki going to be, it looks like, just throwing out additional pylons on here. And also, look at this positioning here, preventing Hellions from being able to slip back there, and also using this on the high ground so he can warp in units to defend. The observer going to see everything moving out here, and we'll see, it looks like the command center landing down here. Yes, it's going to fly right by that observer. So one of the most cost-effective observers I think I've ever seen, because not only is it completely dictating the build order of KiwiKaki, it's also letting him know exactly when his opponent is moving out and when his his opponent is expanding as well. So KiwiKaki going to be in pretty good shape. Is he making 2 carriers? Yes, he is. Also working on that +1 attack for carriers. Not too bad considering there's 8 interceptors, which are all going to benefit from that +1 attack, which is amazing. And the scan right here is going to reveal not a whole lot, and I'm sure that Lomo's going to be scratching his head like, all right, KiwiKaki, what are you up to? He does have an armory on the way. Not only is he going to be using that for upgrades, he could potentially use it for a Thor. Not sure if he's too committed to going that Thor tech or not, but the carriers are going to be completed now. And he doesn't want to reveal these as long as he possibly can, because guess what? The Terran player can own them with Vikings if he gets out a reactor at Starport. So he wants to get them at least in 4 or 5 numbers, or at least in numbers at least 4 or 5. But no, it has been revealed. It looks like by a scan. Here's going to be an attack right here, but the carriers are done, so they will be very vital in this battle, especially with just the fact that none of these units can shoot air except for 2 Marines, which I don't care what their upgrades are not going to be able to do that much damage to the carriers. Here come the 2 carriers right now, and the Hellions do not have any upgrades, so neither do the Marines as well. Looks like KiwiKaki is going to clean this up with a couple of carriers, making a very smart choice here to make carriers to deal with this. He does have 2 more carriers on the way. Now, the thing he's going to have to look out for are these Vikings. You can see Lomo able to crank these out quite easily. Needs to make sure to get another add-on here as well, or at least begin producing Vikings from there. And carriers are essentially completely defenseless against the carriers are completely defenseless against the Vikings if he can get them in a nice large number where you essentially just one-shot the carrier. But for now, he's only got the 3 Vikings, which is not going to be enough. We'll see if he's able to rally in a couple more, and you can see Vikings do additional damage versus armored, so that's where you're going to want to look to see if the Vikings can do as much damage as they should if he can get them in the large numbers. That's where it becomes a complete threat. But if KiwiKaki continues getting out a lot of carriers, may have a difficult time in dealing with that with just pure Vikings. I'm really curious to see if the carrier tech is going to work here. In this situation, it may be a really good choice by KiwiKaki to go for this, but if he overcommits, it can be some trouble for him. As you can see, if we look at the unit counting station, he does have 12 Stalkers, but his ground army is going to be pretty measly. I mean, 1 Immortal, 4 Zealots, not a standard unit composition versus Terran at all, especially since the Stalkers can take a lot of damage from the siege tanks as well. So it's going to come down to, can KiwiKaki can deal enough damage before there's too many Vikings? Can he kill the Vikings with his Stalkers and with his carriers before they're just in these massive numbers? You can see that Lomo's continuing to go for Vikings, also working on that +1 attack for his anti-air Vikings, and he is ahead as far as the tech goes. His income should be a little bit higher. Yes, it is right there. That's because of the high yield expansion. So here comes the attack right now. There is only 4 carriers here, and the problem is that he needs to make sure to keep these Stalkers alive to kill the Vikings. So that's going to be KiwiKaki's main focus right now, and the Vikings sniping a 1 or 2 interceptors here. Not a huge deal. You can just replace those quite easily. We'd have 2 more Stargates on the way. Don't know if he's going to be going for 4 carriers at once, or if he can even afford that off of 3 base. He's taking a 4th base right now. Here come the Vikings, though. The Stalkers staying in front to deal the damage they need to. Also sniping a couple SCVs here. The positioning of it is phenomenal. This is going to be a back-and-forth dance here, because he wants to snipe the tanks here with the carriers, but the Vikings' range is so phenomenal that he's able to kill this. Look at this, sniping 1 carrier. 2nd carrier may go down. No, he's able to micro back there just in time. Now, during this, he is expanding, so even if he loses a carrier or 2, should be okay. He just needs to look out for Hellion run-bys. You can see he's super prepared for 4 cannons at this location. More cannons already on the way. There will be 2 here at this expansion. I'm surprised that that's even in the power grid. Look at it, it almost looks like it's not, but it is. And there is a sensor tower here, a nice choice by our Terran player Lomo, so he can see where those carriers are, because they move so slow that you will be able to snipe them quite easily if you know exactly where they are. So 5 carriers on the field, 4 more carriers on the way. And we do have many upgrades on the way. It looks like we have, yeah, +2's already done, +3 just now starting for the attack. Now, that does mean the carriers are susceptible to a lot of damage, as he has not started armor or shield upgrades at all for these units. And he is, however, securing a 3rd base quite easily, so now his income should definitely be in good shape here. I believe that the Terran player has some mules. Does he have mules, or is it just the high yields that effective? Yes, he has 2 mules at the high yield expansion, which does play a huge role in the amount of income that you're seeing right now. But sustainable-wise, that is going to start favoring the Protoss player once he can get everything fully saturated at this time. And our Terran player having nice, safe technique. Look at all this, the missile turrets he has placed here. This is purely to deal with those carriers, as the siege tanks will really have no time at all, no difficult time dealing with the Stalkers, because there's no blink on those Stalkers, so they will just take the full brute force splash damage of those siege tanks. But look at this, it does look like Lomo going to be securing his other expansion down here as well, so this is going to be his 4th base And surprisingly, KiwiKaki has not taken the high yield of his own. I think he's a little scared of these siege tanks and just scared that there's going to be too many Vikings on the field. Now, we do have the armor level 1 for ground as well as the Twilight Council on the way for KiwiKaki. And this is very unique. Look at the amount of carriers he has. This is not fastest possible map or anything like that, but he does have a nice handful of carriers. He's now up to 10, which is 80 interceptors, so many little interceptors going to be flying around. Once you start getting more and more more and more carriers, it just seems like it scales quite heavily in the chaos that it causes because it's just so much more damage. And Lomo says, "I see you." I think he's talking about the pylon up here, which if we take vision right here, you can see exactly what's going on right there. He also can see the carriers down here. Wants to keep them out of the range as much as possible. The Hellions going to be running down here. Now, these are Blue Flame Hellions, so if there's any workers they can catch a glimpse of, they will do a lot of damage. But as you can see, they just do not do the damage that they would like to against buildings. Look at this. 8 damage plus, yeah, that's just not that much no matter how many Hellions you have. So 8 damage compared to, what is exactly with the upgrades that he has? Oh, he doesn't have any upgrades, so 24 damage to light. Just kind of cracks me up how effective they are against light units. Now, we do have a Templar Archives on the way now. Potential for Psystorm. Might be difficult to use against this meching Terran, but if you can get a Psystorm down, the siege tanks can't really move away from it. Now, we do have more missile turrets over here just turtling like crazy, and here comes the 80 interceptors just going to be attacking here. No, now 109 interceptors just flying in here, and where are all the Vikings? This is only a couple of the Vikings. That is not every Viking on the map, so he needs to make sure to get them over there. Here comes some more flying down here. Needs to make sure to focus fire the carriers so that none of the interceptors get shot at all. The missile turrets trying to shoot everything they possibly can, but this is so many carriers. I'm surprised that he has 12 now, and that is enough to deal with the Vikings quite easily. So 12 carriers just kind of marching in over here, and he says, too much. GG in this game. Absolutely hilarious. We didn't get to see the carriers utilize that much, but it just shows you if you're able to sit back and mass up those carriers, then you are in good shape. Really what Lomo needed to do is some sort of harassment, not just allow KiwiKaki to macro like this. I mean, he went a factory build, which had so many Hellions that he needed to be harassing everywhere. KiwiKaki did prepare quite easily for that, though, with all of these cannons just kind of placed down here and all of that good stuff. So a pretty interesting game. Very rarely will you see carriers. I'm just happy to see carriers in a game, as I almost never get to see them in games that I cast. So once again, thank you for sending games to huskyreplays@gmail.com. And that just was not enough Vikings at all. He lost every single Viking there quite easily. He has ghosts as well as a lot of siege tanks, which I think better scouting, getting the right unit composition would have made this much easier. If he was just focusing on the Vikings the entire time, he would have been just fine. And you can see he was making Vikings down here, but it was a little bit too late. He did have that +1 attack, but he was going against, I believe, did his +3 finish? Yes, it did. So he was working on +1 armor. So he already had the +3 attack. And that means that the Terran player needed to be somewhere similar in upgrades, but he just didn't have the right units. Good game by KiwiKaki. I really like how he saw that his opponent was going heavy mech and decided to go heavy air, as mech is not that good against air in StarCraft 2. In StarCraft 1, you could get Goliaths in order to help deal with the carriers, but in StarCraft 2, there really is no Goliath. Got to rely on the Vikings with that range of 9. But if you don't have enough and there's 108 interceptors flying everywhere, that's when it becomes a little bit difficult to deal with. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be casting more as always, and I will see you guys next time.